Yes, hello, welcome back to All for United WFC for another match reaction show. As has already been referenced in the chat earlier, I wonder whether Connor's coming back. I'm kind of at like 50% match fitness, if that. So we'll see how the show goes anyway. But I'm sure Barry and Kerris are going to carry us through the show as we go through it. Obviously, there's lots to talk about. 1-1 draw with Brighton on Saturday. Game of two halves. I think it can best be said. I'm not going to waste any more time because, to be quite honest, I don't want to be talking too much tonight. So, Keris, I'm going to come to you first. And let's talk about, is there anything to go in with the lineup, really? Because there was only one change, Miyazawa in for Galton. That's obviously enforced with Galton being out. Were you pretty happy with the team that was put out there?
Yeah, we saw it work last weekend, so I couldn't have too many complaints. I think Bizette, I was doubtful in her about, I'd never seen her play in that fullback role, so I was doubtful about that at first. But having seen her over the last two games, all credit to her. She's really shown her versatility. Obviously not nice to see Galton. I don't know what her injury is that forced her out of the squad, but nice to see Miyazawa in that kind of left position because it's not something I think that we've seen from her that much. But I thought in the cup against Liverpool, when we saw her in that area, she played really well. So yeah, I think the lineup I was pretty happy with. But also I thought that the changes that we did eventually make with Aoife coming on, I thought she did really well when she came on. So I think, again, there's positives to be taken from sort of the depth of our squad. It would just be really, really helpful to not have people get injured all the time. But that's life.
I was going to say, we are picking up quite a few, aren't we? Well, it seems anyway. Obviously, we'll wait and see what Mark officially says in regards to Leah. Barry, for yourself, it was unchanged apart from the one enforced one with Miyazawa. I feel like I may have jinxed it as well because Galton was our top scorer against Brighton, and I tweeted that out. And then no Galton, which was a bit annoying. But were you pretty happy with it other than that? Obviously, Hinney in. We've been shouting for Hinney to be starting for a couple of games now.
Indeed, we had Hinney, and it went quite well, I think, having her there. It's going to come as no surprise. People are not going to be shocked to hear. I said it last week. Bizette is going to be great for us going forward, but she's not a right back. I'm going to keep on having to say that clearly, just like I had to say Leah Galton's not a left back. We have this conversation week in, week out, so I'm just going to start. Perhaps we should record one, and I will just refer people to that statement more often than not. She should be higher up the pitch. I don't think anybody really thinks otherwise on that one. It's frustrating because Grace Clinton did all right in the sort of the position that she was in, I thought. So yeah, I had no real problems with the team as such. I'm quite happy with the back foot. Nice to see Gabby George again at left back. I thought that was good. It's not, for me, it's not a bad team. I'm really quite content with it, but I think it is going to keep coming back to bite us in the backside if we continually try and shoehorn these players into places that they just don't need to be when there are already people that can play in those positions available. I know that there's talk about Mannion coming on and her doing okay. It's so obvious. It's a special level of stubbornness that people are having when you've got a centre-back playing in centre-mid and someone who made their career at right-back playing centre-back. It's such an easy swap. Like, it's not a Rubik's Cube puzzle, this one, but honestly, it feels like that's what we're trying to solve each week, when really it's the equivalent of just trying to get your shoes on the right feet. It's not hard.
That's a good analogy, I think, to go with there. I quite like that. But yeah, I agree. I expected it to be the same, and it obviously was the same. Obviously, with Hinney, I was really happy actually that Hinney started. I was just intrigued to see how it was going to work, and we're going to talk obviously about the first half first because that was a lot easier to dissect. I feel like I will just quickly say thank you, TJ, which is a question I'm going to follow into in terms of the first half because. Keris, I'll come to you first before we talk about the attacking side and obviously the goal and things like that. But I want to ask you firstly in terms of the press, because for me, and this is something I wrote about in the piece, that for me, this was the most organised, that front four, front six, whatever you want to look at it as, the press has been. Did you kind of see that as well in terms of pressing as a team and winning the ball higher up this time?
It definitely felt that way, yeah. And I think that's something that almost, Mark Skinner's talked about how he thinks that we've been like one of the best pressing teams in the league, which I think is probably a fair comment. But I felt over the last few games that was almost slipping a little bit, looking a tiny bit less consistent as we tried to sort of adjust to this new system. So I thought our press was good on Saturday. I think that for me was a big positive. It's just about sort of, as I'm sure we'll go on to mention, like the then ruthlessness to convert what we get out of that. I think we stifled Brighton really well with the high press, but then it's also about converting anything that we get out of that into actual reward for ourselves. That's the problem that we've had.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, and I think that's the frustrating thing when we look back. We're going to come to this when we talk about the second half, I'm sure, but there were chances in the first. It's hard to remember. It's hard to remember, I guess, because a lot of people are focused on the second half, which is why I want to put, pardon the pun, but half of this show towards the first half. Because I mean, Barry, do you agree? Kind of off the ball and our pressing work this time. That's for me what was leading to a lot of our attacks. The fact that we were winning the ball higher up, and a lot of people saying Brighton couldn't play out from the back properly and it was sloppy. But I think that was actually because of how good we were in boxing them in, and Brighton couldn't play out, which meant obviously we had quite a few good chances in that first half. Not only is Barry not sent the message in the private chat, he's muted as well.
I thought I'd unmuted. It's not working. Oh my goodness. What a time to be alive. Technical stuff catching me out. Listen, I thought the first half was pretty good. We are pressing hard and we are winning the ball high up the pitch. And that shouldn't be a surprise because that's literally what Mark Skinner said he wanted them to do. I mean, that is, it's not a secret. If it was, it would be the worst kept secret ever, really. It's not that tricky to see. But it's working. And I think that's the bit that's really impressive is that this is why the great teams don't need to change the way that they play because they're just really effective at doing what they do. And if you get a high press correct, it's virtually impossible to play around every single time. You are going to make chances because by its very nature, you are putting people under a ridiculous amount of pressure and they can't make the right decision under pressure every single time. You think about it, any time in your daily life, when you are put under a level of pressure consistently, you will make maybe 99 out of 100 decisions correct, but there's always going to be that one that's not. When you're high pressing, it's worse. It's more like 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, depending on the level of the team you're playing against. And that's the thing that we had there. You put people under pressure, it's going to be difficult. And that's exactly what we're doing. And by doing that and by swarming up in numbers, so you've got people up there to support, it's not just a case of, oh, hello, we won the ball. It's, oh, hello, we've won the ball, and now we need to find somewhere to put it. Oh, look, there's some more people in red running up. That's excellent. I've got some people I can pass the ball to. And so as a result, your chances are of a better opportunities, aren't they? Because you had the chance to actually try and score a goal. So there's no... It doesn't require one of Connor's tactical breakdowns, I don't think, in terms of the press up front. That is apparent. I think Stevie Wonder saw that as well, so that's not a massive drama. For me, as I said, in terms of playing the game, I think we have played it incredibly well. And I know that, you weren't a huge fan when I said this, but ultimately, this is a side that have started the season incredibly well. And it was our biggest test of the season so far. And I would argue it's not that bad a point in the end. But when you look at that first half, you would want to be more than just 1-0 up. And that is the danger of any football game. It happened in our one at Stevenage, 1-0 up, feeling brilliant, 92nd minute penalty, and you lose it all. So that's the problem if you don't take the chances. But we are making the chances, and that is a massive plus as well. So when you keep making those chances, keep putting yourself in a position where you can score, I would say the level of striker and the level of forward that we have at the moment, I think more often than not, we will put those chances away. So yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, well, you only have to look at Newcastle and Charlton yesterday in the Championship. 3-1 up, last couple of minutes. Newcastle didn't take some of the chances they had. I think they go down to 10 and they concede 2 in the 90-plus minute, and they end up drawing the game. And obviously, that's points dropped from their side. And I think that's kind of what happened with us. That we had the chances in the first half. I think Hinney had a good one. Turlin definitely had one. Grace hits the bar. Like, we had the chances to kill that game off in the first kind of half an hour, 35 minutes, I felt, with the chances that we had. And like you just said, Barry, if you don't do that, you always run the risk. My issue then comes in the second half, which we'll come to later in the show, that we were too slow then to react to Brighton getting better. And maybe being a bit too safe in that one. But yeah, we'll come to that in a second. The player of the match poll is in the chat. We had a feeling when we put this together that there's going to be a standout winner. And to be fair, it is closer than I thought. But you've got a choice this week of Clinton, Bizette, tullis-joyce, and Mearzawa. Everyone's got a vote already, so I'm quite happy with that. But we'll come to that at the end of the show, so make sure you get your vote in on there, and we'll come back around to that one. Speaking of Parris, Grace Clinton's goal then. So, I mean, Celine's on 3 assists now. Grace is on 3 goals. Not too bad, is it? Again, I tweeted this when we scored, actually, that for me, this is something we didn't see last season with midfielders arriving into the box. And Grace has now got a couple of goals by doing this. Yeah, if you just want to, I guess, talk through the goal and if you want to expand it out to Clinton's overall performance, because again, like I said, scores the goal, hits the bar. She had quite a first half.
Yeah, I think that link up between Grace and Celine is something that we should be really pleased with. Obviously, we knew there were 2 players that obviously are good mates and whatever, but more than that, just to move away from their best friends, they clearly have a great relationship on the pitch as well. They have a really good understanding of how each other play. They know where to put the ball for the other person to be there. And I think that's really kind of positive for us to have that option on the right-hand side. Like, I know that we've talked about, and some people are frustrated that we wouldn't put Mannion in at right back rather than Bizette. I do understand that point of view, but it's really good to know that we still have that adaptability, that we have a full back in Bizette that can get forward that well. I think it's obviously a risky kind of way to play, but it can pay off, and we saw it pay off with the goal. I think, again, like that sort of cross in. And I think what's really impressive about Grace Clinton scoring these goals from these crosses is she's not, it's not as if she is a sort of Mayra Ramirez or Bunny Shaw type figure where she's towering above her defender. It's her movement that gets her into those positions. Granted, from Brighton, it wasn't great defending, but it's Grace's movement that gets her into those positions where she can put those chances away. Not every goal needs to be a worldie. Sometimes it is a really simple header at the post. And I think that, she's shown just in these opening few games how valuable she's going to be for us, because you're completely right, Connor. We didn't see our midfielders arriving into the box to attack the ball as much as I would have liked last season. I felt that was something that we lacked. And I'm really glad to kind of see it back now.
Yeah, and I think that's the key here. Obviously, we all know, we were kind of saying backstage, and in fact, I'm going to save this for once I've asked Barry the question, because my head's spinning a bit now, so I'm going to come back to that. Barry, talk us through the goal and your thoughts on it. And obviously, as I said, we can expand this out in a second to a wider point around Grace.
Okay. I think mine's going a bit slow because that literally just popped up as you started talking. I'm like, that's not fair. Do you know what? Grace Clinton is an absolute machine. She genuinely is. Like, she played well when she was at Spurs. I would argue she's got even better. And that in itself is probably the best compliment I can give her. The goal itself was excellent. Superb work. Again, like you say, some excellent work from, in her absence, I'll throw it in there, some excellent work from Muzzy getting the ball into the box. And of course, in pops Grace, and she does that does all the hard work. But genuinely, when you start talking about Grace, it was mentioned in the chat just a moment ago. Somebody's put it on there. Literally just a couple of minutes later, she has a shot from just inside the box. It cannons off the crossbar. And then the rebound, I forget who it was who had that shot, but it wasn't great and straight at the goalkeeper. So it was easily picked up. But two great opportunities, I thought, there from Grace Clinton. And just the level of effort, the level of danger, she's just making it look so easy. She glides in, goes around. It's a bit like watching, not that I spend a lot of time watching this, but it's a bit like watching, and I hope you've heard of this show, Connor, because if you haven't, it's going to knock me off my chair. But it's a bit like watching really good dancers on Strictly Come Dancing, because she's just all over the place. Genuinely, she covers the entire pitch gracefully, and I'm not even trying to be funny there with the name. She's genuinely just everywhere. And her finishing product is just a 10 nearly every single time. It's honestly, it's a joy to watch. And we're getting to the sort of point where people coming in and watching Manchester United women play would probably be happy to pay the entrance fee just to see Grace Clinton. And I think for me, that is, I mean, this is a brave shout, but you've got to argue that if she has a few more seasons at this, surely she's going to be in the conversation for the big awards, because honestly, the trajectory she's on at the moment, it's just mad. It's like White Cliffs of Dover ascent, it's just straight up. It's amazing. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, I don't think it can be underestimated. I think it kind of goes unnoticed with a lot of footballers, but I think her football brain and her intelligence on the ball and off it, for that matter, I think is very underrated. Obviously, we all see what her goals and her assists and things like that. But I think her intelligence on and off the ball creates a lot of chances for United. And that move, for the goal and for the one where she hit the bar, her kind of footwork just to get into that position, the one that hit off the bar, is neither do I, James. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of talk about a contract and things like that. I hope to hear maybe something about that over the next couple of months, because that is going to be a scary few months the other side of January if we get closer to the end of the season and she's not tied down to a contract, because I'm sure those stories will start to come out, so we will see. But for me, I agree with Lot, and I think if she's ever watching this, I hope not to put too much pressure on her shoulders. I genuinely think she could become one of the best players we've had. I really think she is that good, and she is showing levels above anyone else, I think, in the squad at the moment. Now, don't get me wrong, there are players in the squad I think they can get to that level as well, but for me, she is just levels ahead of what everyone else at the moment, and it's great to see. There was a bit of conversation, will she come back the same player? She seemed happy at Spurs and all this nonsense. Well, she's come back to United, and everyone always says, "Oh, United got it," and all this kind of stuff. She was always ours anyway. That's how loan works. But yeah, I just can't believe how good she's been. As I said to these guys before we went live, I knew she was good, from what we saw at Spurs. But to me, she's going to another level, providing obviously she keeps this up for the season as well. We kind of spoke a bit about the goal there, but I want to throw Bizette into this as well. And Karis, I'll come over to you, because that's 3 assists for her now. Obviously, 3 in the last 2 games that she's started. Obviously, there's question marks over her playing at right back and her defensive side, which we'll come to when we talk about the second half. But what have you made of her in kind of the last 2 games, but particularly this one in the first half, her kind of attacking outlet, generating chances, even in the second half when she was pushed to right wing? She's putting balls. I think Turnham had a good chance off the back of a Bizette cross. She's generated so much down that right side, isn't she?
Yeah, I think this is positive to have that outlet, even though she's, right back. I know that obviously if we were to ask Mark Skinner, he'd say that players like Leah Galton and Celine Bizette can play up and down an entire flank. And it's great to have that versatility, but you still have to admit right back is not her first position. She's still, I think, contributed a lot to the attack, which obviously with her assists, but also just generally sort of the run she's making, she's dragging midfielders out of where they should be. They're not expecting to have to deal with a fullback that high up the pitch in a lot of scenarios, which I think is helping us. It's helping us create like a bit of an overload occasionally. So it's been really positive to see. The issue is just ever having a fullback breaking that high up the pitch obviously creates the risk of being caught on the transition. I think we started to struggle more down that side when Michelle Agneman came on, which, by the way, when we talk about young English players who could come to be one of the best at their clubs, I think you want to watch her at Arsenal whenever she ends up back there, because I was very, very excited to see her go on loan to Brighton because of how good we already know she is at the age she is, which is, I think, like 18 or something silly. She was born in like a silly year. I Googled it and it made me feel ancient, and I'm 20. So yeah, that was digression, but she's another one to watch out for. I think when she came on, we started struggling a bit more, and that just exposes kind of my concern with having that sort of flying fullback is when we have the likes of Caitlin Ford coming down the wing, are we going to be as comfortable dealing with that? I think that's what we have to consider, and that's no sort of discredit to Bizette and how she's played in that role. It's just that we need to consider whether it's a sustainable option to have her that high up the pitch.
2006, Parris was the...
She's 18. She's 18. This is why I'm perplexed. It's only 2 years making Parris sound ancient. Crikey.
Yeah. Because like, who's born in 2006? That's not real. Like, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
But I do agree, and I think, well, Barrett, same question to yourself on Celine in terms of her attacking outlet, in terms of the chances we created, because ultimately, she created the most chances against Spurs with the 2 that she put in for Turland and a couple more on top of that. And again, in the first half yesterday, a lot of our attacks seemed to come down the right-hand side. And even in the second half, as I said, when we finally made the subs late in the game, towards the end of the game, she was the one creating on the right-hand side as well. So, yeah, what have you made of her in the last kind of couple of games from an attacking point of view?
Which name? Which person am I chatting about?
Bizette, sorry.
Oh, Bizette, thank you. Okay. From an attacking point of view, we said this in the last game, 2 assists in the last game, absolutely superb. Again, what I love most about Bizette is the other side of attacking that we get given. So when you start thinking about being able to cross the ball in, as we said, for me, that's huge. The fact that she is looking up, getting those crosses in, see you later. Obviously really upset her talking about that. She's feeling that old now. Technology has just ruined her. What a time to be alive. This was you that was supposed to drop out of college. We left being you and me, honestly. But she just has the ability to, like I say, get a ball in. She doesn't necessarily go for the J's move. She's not looking to always beat the player, not always looking to try and get herself back in that way. Thank you for joining us again, lovely. Well, nice to see you. It's a bit like your wardrobe just dropped. So then, oh my God, backstage secrets. Why can't I just answer a question properly? Why must all these things happen whilst I'm talking? You know that I just lose track of things. Jays will try and beat players. Bizette will try and put balls into the box. And I think that's what's really nice to see is that if you've got a defence where you think we can really attack this ball back, you're going to want to put Jays in there because she's got the ability and the trickery to be able to get around players. If you're looking at that and you're thinking, do you know what, we need to get Turland, Mallard, these people and try and get them on the shoulder of a defender and hope that a ball's going to be put in that's just inch perfect, then that's where you're looking for Bizette. So for me, absolutely loving the fact that we've got all these 2 players that could do that. But yeah, me, attacking wise, Bizette, brilliant, chef's kiss.
No, absolutely. I think it's hopeful to me when we do see her in a more attacking role, starting on the right wing. I think that's going to be a danger to anyone else's defense when we're looking at it from that point of view. So I'm really excited. I think it's a good option to have when you've got 2 different types of wingers playing off the right hand side as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good problem to have. This was a good comment, I felt like, from Sean. It's trying to ignore some of his other comments because he's gloating, of course, as I thought you might. But I thought that was a good one.
If I'm not mistaken, Connor, that was the song that you were singing just before you started doing your flag dance on the FA Cup final day. I don't feel like dancing. All of a sudden, there you are with your flag, just woo.
No one needs to see the video of that.
Not again, no, not again.
That was quite something. But you are right. I did, yeah. I don't know where I'm going with this. Should we talk about this? Oh dear, I'm too tired. Second half.
That's run a bit of a digression. Have you ever checked, like, obviously Parris hasn't, it might make you feel old, but have you ever checked what was number 1 on the day you were born?
Yes, it was Cha-Cha Slide.
Do you want me to have a look?
Yeah, because I was actually really happy with that because I feel like that one's timeless. But yeah,
there's got to be a website for this. Oh, here we go.
Wow.
Do you want me to do it right?
Why don't you ask a question while you check?
I'm on it right now. Here we go. So it was what? Perfect Day. Never heard of it.
Oh, it's such a that was actually a Children in Need song that they all put together for that. So it was done by a lot of celebrities. So yeah, mine was The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
See, I know that.
So there you go.
There we go. There's a little digression for the show. What were we 26 minutes in?
Loved it.
And no one needs to see that. People did see that, and never again. Maybe if we win an award in a month's time, then maybe. But then again, Parris will have to see that, so maybe not.
I was just going to say, Parris, are you going?
I am.
So if this happens, I'm expecting to see a double Cha-Cha Slide.
Yeah, if we win, then I'll get the DJs to play Cha-Cha Slide.
Love it.
There we go. We can make that work. Hey, it's one of those. Right. Let's talk briefly about. Well, I say brief. This is probably going to be the big part of the show. The second half, then. Parris, obviously, we kind of spoke about this a little bit in terms of the subs Brighton made. They made 2 at half time, and for me, that completely changed the dynamic of the game. And I think Skinner spoke about this in his post match, saying that Brighton were going to come out a different team because they're behind, so they're always going to come out different. Now that worried me a little bit because I'm thinking, well, if you know that, then surely you see that and you would want to change it in the game. But what do you think it was? Because I've had my say on this, and as people have seen my Twitter, I've written about this. What did you think the issues were in the second half? Because we did drop off for about 25 minutes after half time. Brighton did seem to be the more comfortable side in that kind of period after half time.
I think for me, there's 2 things. So one is the word that we used in the press conference after Spurs was ruthless, right? So it was in that game, we didn't dominate. Spurs were the better team, but we were ruthless with the chances that we had. We took them and we converted them into goals, and that was that. I think it was the opposite in this game. We dominated for ages, and then we didn't manage to sort of convert any of it into actual... we didn't manage to convert any of it into goals. That was the problem. So I think that's number 1 for me, was almost the problem in the second half, was missed chance in the first half coming back to bite us. And I think the second sort of links to that, it's the lack of urgency almost. We do seem to have a bit of a second half kind of lull at times. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that can be linked to sort of maybe making some changes earlier. We've talked about in-game adaptability a lot and whether we should make sure. I think the first change was after 70 minutes, which for me is too late, especially a game that you're only leading 1-0. 1-0 is never a safe lead. It takes, no matter how well you're playing or how much you're dominating the game, all it takes is literally one freak corner and a gust of wind. And in their case, they didn't need that because they had Nikita Parris. So I think, yeah, Emma's just said in the chat, a bit of arrogance, maybe. I think potentially there is a bit of that. But also, we knew what we were getting from Brighton. They've played really well so far this season. So I think that, we need to just be a bit less sort of naive when we're defending a narrow lead like that, and think a bit more about the teams that we're playing against. No team in this division now, I don't think, especially not a team like Brighton, are not going to sit back and play damage limitation. They were going into that game wanting 3 points ideally, and definitely 1. I think that they will see a point out of that as a fair result, and will almost be potentially disappointed with how they played and feel that they could have got more on their day. I'm not saying they deserve more, but could have got more. So I think that we just need to be a little bit less naive when we're defending those sorts of narrow leads.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair way of looking at it. And Barry, I'll throw the same over to you in terms of the second half. I don't know whether we want to incorporate the... In fact, no, I'm going to come to the Parris goal separately in a second in terms of what we could have done differently there. But in terms of the first 25 minutes after half-time, again, I said Skinner spoke about this. I think Janssen spoke about it in her interview as well. I don't know whether anyone else has done interviews. I've only seen those two up to today. What did you see? What did you kind of agree with Parris and what I kind of said in terms of what the potential issues were there? Because we work not under the car. I didn't feel like Brighton were battering us, but they definitely looked the more comfortable in that kind of 20 minutes, 25 minutes after half time.
Do you know, it's a really tricky thing. I don't know at what point in the world where football fans have got this idea that on the regular that you have or that you will just boss a game for 90 minutes and completely negate absolutely everything that the opposition does. The simple fact is, whatever you look at, whether you're looking at Chelsea in the women's game, Man City in the men's game, however you're looking at it, even these teams that seem unbeatable at times, they still have moments within games where other teams get a bit of an ascendancy, get a little head of steam. And it's about trying to see those out as best as you can. So you're always going to get that. There's people saying, well, if we'd have brought on somebody else, it would have made a difference. Well, maybe it would have. We won't know that for sure. But the goal was scored in the 52nd minute. So it was quite soon after half-time. So for people saying we needed to make that substitution, I don't see too many managers making a substitution in the 47th, 48th, 49th, 50th minute. The magic number, as we know from this channel, is usually around about 60. So even if we made the changes at that point, the damage has been done at that point, that the goal has been scored. It's always a tricky thing. Like, how many times, I've lost count of the number of times you'll be coaching a side and you'll say to him, just make sure you keep it tight at the beginning, make sure you're watching what you're doing at the back. And within 30 seconds to a minute, you've conceded because the other team's got a plan too. They're not just turning up and going, well, let's just see what the other team's going to do. And then we'll just, react to that. They've got their idea of what they want to do. And that's what they would have done in the second half. They came out stronger, better. I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Skinner's turned around to everybody and said, just go out there and do what you've been doing for the first half. It's been absolutely brilliant. And it can be a tricky thing because you do get the ability to be a little bit complacent. If somebody's come in and just said to you, yeah, you've done really well, keep going, is there a chance that you're sitting there going, brilliant, excellent, this isn't going to be a drama? And then you get shocked by what's happened, but that gives them confidence. So then you're playing catch up. There are so many different things that could happen within a football match that actually we all just need to, I think, in my little world, just accept that was always going to be a possibility. That's the first goal we've conceded so far this season. Like, we're in the middle of October. And it's the first goal. So, is it bad? Yes, it is, because it meant we lost a couple of points. But it's one goal. And that goal could have come at any point in any of the games. And actually, if it had, it wouldn't have been too bad in a different game. But in this one, we only scored the one. So therefore, it was a problem. Did we react as well as we could have done? Probably not. Not everybody is going to get it right. Not every manager is going to get it right. Not every player is going to get it right for 90 minutes. But when you actually look overall, yes, Brighton had the better statistics in terms of possession. They had all of that. But they didn't have as many shots as us. They didn't have as many shots on target. The passing was about the same. They had, actually, though, the two better chances. We had one, they only had two clear-cut chances. So they did do a little bit better than that. And that, ultimately, is what it comes down to. We scored one goal from one clear-cut chance, despite having 13 opportunities. So the other 12 opportunities were good, but they weren't gilt-edged. And they're the kind of ones that you need in order to be walking away from a game and thinking, yeah, we should have won that. So I think for me personally, I'm not fussed about the fact that it's a draw away from home against a side, and I know you're going to giggle at me in a second, Connor, but against a current top 4 side. Like they are, you can talk about Arsenal as much as you like. I know Mara's sitting there, so I'm not saying this just to try and provoke you, Mara, but Brighton's work ethic and their ability over the course of the start of this season has put them in a position where they are in the top 4 and confidence is high. If Brighton weren't doing too well in that first few weeks, we probably would have beaten them 3 or 4-0. But there's stuff happening at Brighton. They might end up being a mid-table side, but the simple fact is that at this point of the season, they're a top 4 side. And if you walk away from your season at the end, drawing away from home against teams that are in the top 4, but then beating them when you're at home, then you're probably going to win the league.
I can see your point. I disagree to a point because I feel like, yes, they're in the top 4, but they are currently. But again, to be honest, I never look at the table until everyone's played everyone, because you can't judge a table until you've played everyone at least once, because the table can be skewed. We haven't played Chelsea yet, when we should have done, so we're a game out of sync. So you can cut the tables a bit skewed early on, and I know my camera's gone skewed as well. I'm not going to fix that. I can sort itself out in a minute. So I'm not looking at it too much like from that point of view. My issue doesn't come in terms of the goal, in terms of not making changes then. It's how late we waited to make the change, I think was the problem. Parris just realised there's vodka in that glass. It's how late...
Well, there must be something in there. I've literally only put Coke in there, but my God, Connor, you've changed entirely. I feel like I've got my beer goggles on. What's going on?
I'll fix it in a second.
The beautifully coiffured quiff is just like, you're like a Lego man at the minute. It's all just a bit...
I don't know what's happened. It keeps doing this. And to be fair, I've had this camera for about 6 years, so I'm not surprised. It's probably running a little bit. Anyway, I'll ask the question and I'll come around to that. But yes, my issue becomes that we just seem to me, it was pretty clear. And to be fair, Mark even said this in his, I don't know whether this ever got reported or not, because there wasn't that many people in the press room. But listening to the audio back of the press conference, he was asked about this in terms of whether the changes should have been earlier. And he said that, maybe when they watch it back, you're talking a few minutes in terms of bringing those subs on earlier as well. So I think he realizes that it was probably a little bit too late to have the impact that he would have wanted. Because for me, down that right-hand side, I liked the changes. And I said this at the time, right personnel, probably about 10 minutes too late. Because by that point, for me, I don't know, maybe this is just, and this is something we spoke about, well, not we, Barry and the other guy spoke about on the men's channel. When you're looking at Sir Alex, for example, you go out to win the game, and I felt like we went there and we were okay with picking up a point, and it was a bit like, we'll just wait, we're pretty happy at 1-1, and then we'll maybe risk it towards the very end of the game rather than going through it a little bit earlier. So that was my issue with it. No issue with the subs. I actually think they were right. I just think they were too late to make a big impact on the game. But I don't disagree with Brighton's quality. I still don't think they're for this top 6. Sorry, Sean, I know you asked that a bit earlier on. I'm not having that. So yeah, it's a difficult. I said this yesterday. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not awful. However, it's frustrating because of how good we were. Didn't take the chances, and then it feels like 2 points dropped, because it's almost like you want it the other way around, isn't it? You start poor, you salvage a point, rather than you start really well and you give up 2 points. That's kind of how I look at the game anyway. I'd rather it be the other way around, because it feels better when you finish the game. In terms of the goal itself, Parris, is there anything that you want to highlight on the goal itself? Obviously, it had to be Parris, didn't it? of all players. We kind of... we knew that was coming, and with the first goal we conceded all season, it had to be an ex-United player.
Yeah, no, I said to my dad at the start of the game, it feels scripted that either Parris or Turland will score. I think it looked disorganised potentially at the back from us. It felt like we should have probably had that threat neutralised earlier. And yeah, I think it was it's good positioning from her, to be fair, good persistence. That was Pete Barclays that cleaning the camera in the middle of games. So funny. But yeah, no, I think that, credit to Keats for getting herself in that position, having the strength to put it away. There's nothing Fallon could have done about it. I think it was a tricky, the way it came. It was almost like a deflection off her, and it would change pace too quickly for Fallon to do anything about it. I think this is just where it comes down to defensive organisation, just staying sharp the entire game, which I know is a lot easier said than done. But yeah, for me, the goal that we conceded wasn't particularly the issue. You can play as well as you like, and you can still concede a goal like that most of the time. So even though I was a bit frustrated with the defending, the main issue for me wasn't that we conceded; it was that we hadn't already put ourselves out of sight. I felt that Brighton in the second half, the way they played, probably deserved a goal out of it. I think, when we were getting towards the end of the game, I was thinking a draw is annoying, but we can't be too annoyed because we didn't take our chances. A win would have felt just about deserved for us. And I felt that Brighton can feel they deserved a point out of that. So my issue wasn't so much the way we conceded as the fact we hadn't already gone out of sight.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. It's again, I've only just remembered this, but Brighton nearly scored just before half-time as well. If it wasn't for Fallon making a really good save at a near post, it would have been 1-1 going into half-time, and that might have obviously changed the half-time team talks and the dynamics there. But that was actually probably a better chance than the one they scored from. And to be honest, I think a better forward scores there. I can't remember who it was that took the shot, but she's wide open, only a couple of yards out. Barry, for yourself, in terms of the goal, I'm trying to remember it. All I remember is Maya kind of like half clears it and it comes to the edge, and it's whether I can't remember who it was that took the, I'm going to call it shot/cross, because it kind of glances in front of goal, and obviously Keats gets a head on it. What I will say, I agree with Sean. I don't know whether either of you two do that. I'm glad it was Parris and not Russo after the international break. I agree there. So I agree on that one. But
as someone who lives with an Arsenal fan, I'd also like to say I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely not. But yeah, no, I don't think, especially LSV as well, no chance. Barry, anything you want to add on in terms of the goal itself? Because it's a really weird goal to dissect, because it's a typical kind of poacher's glancing header, isn't it? Kind of in front of goal.
It's what she does. She's absolutely got the ability to do that. I mean, if anything, we know exactly what Nikita Parris can do. This isn't, or it shouldn't be, a shock that Nikita Parris gets herself into positions where she can try and do that. Listen, there's a bit of luck involved. Of course there is, because, it's a case of, like you say, being in the right place, getting the right type of deflection. But I mean, I'm a bit like you, Connor. I'm struggling to remember it perfectly. But I think at the end of the day, it's just one of those. I'm not as fussed. Like, there's so much doom and gloom going about, and I can't understand it. Like, people are talking as if we're leaking goals, hemorrhaging goals. It's one goal, one. Like the world, I can't get it. I'm not even fussed that she celebrated, because I think that Nikita Parris was more than respectful to all of the fans in the time that she was at Manchester United. And she's not blind. She would have seen some of the absolute drivel that was thrown her way when she first joined. So I'm not being funny. If I was Nikita Parris, I'd have done about 7 different celebrations, let alone 4. I'd have gone searching. I'd have gone hunting for some of those people, and I'd have given it, because let's not forget, she was called a dead player. That's what people were saying she was. Yeah, she's dead. She's no good anymore. And I told you, why don't people listen, Connor? I told you that she's not dead. She's very much alive. She's got great ability, and she showed that. She is capable of getting in those positions at that time. I feel the only person I feel sorry for is Fallon tullis-joyce, because that ruined her birthday. And that's it. I don't think there's anything else to feel bad about. It's a goal. We're going to concede goals. No club goes through the whole season without scoring goals. Without conceding goals, sorry. The big problem we've had is that we did not finish off the chances that we had in the first half. If we had that, we're not having this conversation. It's as simple as that. We didn't, and that's always going to be the problem. And that was where we were. So yeah, it's a good goal, but it is what it is. Is what it is. I don't see that there are no panic stations being pushed over here at Rust HQ. We're quite content. We're quite happy, and we are maintaining our top of the table finish prediction. I've seen nothing yet that tells me that we're not winning the league. Nothing at all.
I also think as well on the goal, it's interesting to note that Bizette's marking 2 players. She's caught between Parris and I can't remember who it is that's behind her. And again, I think a more natural defender in her position probably knows where to go. But because, and again, sorry, I'm going to keep shouting at my piece, but she did that a lot where she was getting caught between 2 players. Does she go to the midfielder? Does she go to the forward that's making the run behind her? For the goal, she's like, do I go to Parris? Do I go to the player behind me? Because she got caught in a 2v1 pretty much for the whole time until Mannion came on. And again, obviously, I go back to it. That's why I think the issues were in not bringing a defender on and pushing her up earlier, because it could have got worse. It didn't. So I'm glad that we did come away with a point rather than losing.
Do you not see? Sorry to interrupt, but do you not see the irony of the fact that people are saying we should have brought a defender on at half time?
Not at half time.
Like, well, but even then, even after half time, like, surely the irony of that whole conversation should be just start the bloody defender from the start. This is what I'm getting at. Like, it's all very well and good having 45 minutes of great play and then everybody going, oh, we should have brought a defender on in the second half. No, we should have just started with one. If you start with a defender in a defensive position, we're not having this conversation. So, like, this is why we have a problem with Bizette at right back. Like, it's mental. It's mad. Why are we doing that? Just put a player who plays at right back. I don't know. Maybe someone like Maya Letitia could potentially go at right back, a world-class footballer who would have the ability to lock down that position until Jade Riviere is feeling well again. And then she just shifts back into centre-back. That's what a good captain would be able to do. Like, it's honestly, people are making this so deep. Like, we've got bigger problems on the men's side looking at who plays at fullback. I wish it was as easy as this over there. It's so simple. Like, I reckon I could give this problem to children in year 3, and I genuinely think they would solve the problem faster than it's just stubbornness at this point. It's so easy. Sorry.
So what would you have, Barry, if you had Maya coming into right back? What would you do? Drop Dom into centre back and put Hayley Ladd
centre back, Hayley Ladd centre mid. Thank you very much. Winning the league.
Yeah, I'm literally not too far off it, except I would put Mannion right back, and I'd drop Dom into centre back anyway, regardless, and then you take Millie out potentially. That I've been calling for that since the start of the season, so that would be what I would have done. And Mannion is solid enough. She's played at right back versus Arsenal and all these other clubs. You know, she played against. I'm pretty sure she was a right back when we beat Chelsea in the semi-final last season. You know, she can play there and play there very, very well. So again, for me, you put someone like that there, who's actually a natural defender. Now, don't get me wrong, as we said at the start, it worked in the first half. But like I said, then Brighton changed their approach and they put a more direct winger on Bizette, and they got in behind her again and again and again. And obviously, Brighton's goal comes from Bizette being having 2 players on her. And I felt sorry for her because that's not her position. So, yeah, hopefully against Arsenal, we've got.
There's
Jade
also
back.
an element on the goal of just defensive organisation as well. Like, you can see Maya shouting for the offside straight away because she doesn't realise that she's tried to pull the line out and Bizette and Millie haven't come out with her. So I think that's the sort of basic thing that we need to consider as well. Celine shouldn't have had 2 players, but also there's an element of organisation where the whole defensive unit, you can tell Maya's not checking back over her shoulder in that particular instance because I think she thinks the line's out with her. Could be wrong, don't live in her head, but that's also why her fullback is then left with 2 players because there's just a little bit of not being on the same page among the whole defence.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like I said, it has been a changed up back 4 in every. Have we had the same back 4 in every game yet? Or maybe the first 2, West Ham and Everton, I think we had the same back 4. But since then, it's been different because Liverpool was different. Spurs to this one was the same, actually. So, yeah, you know what I mean. While we're talking about Celine, actually, and decisions and things like that, Mark Skinner spoke in every interview he's done. He spoke about it in the press conference and he spoke about it in his interview with MUTV about a potential penalty on Bizette in the second half. I don't know whether either of you two have seen this moment. that's been referenced a couple of times in the chat. The one that I think he's referring to, because there was a couple of half shouts, but the one I think he's on about is where Bizette gets on the edge of the box and the defender comes into her back and just clatters into her from behind. Doesn't really get the ball. It's, for me, it's borderline. I don't think there's too much in it, to be honest. I don't think it's enough for Mark to be saying it's a stonewall. I can't lie. As biased as I am as a United fan, I don't think it's stonewall, but there is a shout, but I would be annoyed if that was given against us, put it that way. I don't know. I don't know whether you two agree. Oh, no, lots disagree. Oh, me and Lotta are disagreeing for the first time. Saying it's stonewall. A lot of, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I need to watch it back.
I feel like that just feels like an excuse to me. I didn't see anything in there that would make it exactly a penalty. I think they could get given, they might not. For me, stonewall penalties are like the ones against Chelsea when Nikita Parris was bodied off of the ball twice and nothing was given. Those are stonewall penalties. I'm not convinced. Like JJ says, if we'd won the game, it wouldn't get mentioned. And I think that's it. Was we happy at Stevenage with the handball that was given? Absolutely not. But you know, it did, and you just have to live with it. Sometimes they get given, sometimes they don't. And I don't know what Keris thinks, but I can't say that my overriding thought when I left that game from the TV was, oh, we definitely should have had a penalty. That's out of order. I don't think I can really blame the ref on this one.
No, honestly, I feel like I need to watch it back because I can't even recall the incident exactly, but I'm a very dramatic person when I'm watching a game. So I'm pretty sure if on the first time of asking I'd really thought it was a penalty, then I probably would have made a song and dance about it and I would remember it. So my instinct, just purely off me not remembering it that well, is to think that I probably don't think there was much in it. And also I agree with what's been said. Like, my general rule of thumb is if you would still complain about a decision if you'd won, then that's fair enough. Like, for instance, I was at the men's game on Saturday and, you know, still complaining about the decision after to send De Ligt off for treatment. I think he should have gone off for treatment, but if fair enough, if you're still going to complain about it even after you've won, then fine, be angry about it. If it's a decision that is only an issue for you if you lose, then that's more an issue with your loss. And I think, again, like, it's not an excuse. We should have just taken our chances better. If we wanted a goal, we shouldn't have needed a penalty. We probably had shots with more XG, or not more, but we probably would have had shots around the same XG as a penalty would have been. We could have created as much as that.
For those of you who don't recall, you can go and watch the game back. It's on 88 minutes and 25 seconds. So if you watch the instant back from there, and you can make your own mind up, and feel free to tweet us afterwards if you think it was.
The fact that it's that late in the game as well, though, and people aren't really remembering it, like Keris saying, I don't really remember it, like, tells us that it's not that big a deal, because we'd remember it if we're coming out of there that late in the game going, oh my God, it's all changed on that.
I think that's it. At the time, I mean, well, you for those of you who obviously follow our Twitter, I didn't tweet anything about it at the time because for me, I didn't see it as a big thing. I think if I was in the ground, I would have, because you appeal for anything when you're when you're in a ground. I think it's one of those. I think it could be given, but I don't think this. I have to ask the question because he said it twice in two different interviews, saying that it was Stonewall. So I thought I may as well bring that up. But yeah, I agree with what's been said in terms of taking our chances in the first half. As I said, I think we had more than enough to take, with the couple of chances that we did create in that first half. Yeah, I agree. For Turland, it was a tough old game. Funnily enough, 20 seconds after this penalty shout, she had her best chance of the game, where she kind of gives the defender a little nudge and volleys it, and Bagley makes the save out for a corner. So when you look at it from that point of view, she had one chance and that was it. No, I think she had one in the first half actually. But so again, not as many chances, but I'm not worried. She's off the mark now in terms of her 2 goals against Spurs. So she'll get a few more, I'm sure, as the season goes on. What's everyone else saying in the chat here? There's a lot of people talking about, I think, Barry, you've already replied to this about what you're drinking there. In fact, it's in a wine glass. or whatever glass it is. I don't know.
It's just a beer glass. That's you'd put beer in that quite normally. But yeah, there's me just whacking out my Stockwell sugar-free cola. Ooh, what a world it is.
Before we come to player of the match and look to round this one off, because it's a conversation. I don't even know if I want to go here. I'm only really bringing this up now because I've seen it in the chat quite a lot, and I feel like it's a conversation point to end the show, and then we'll come to player of the match. In terms of the midfield discussion, in terms of what we do moving forward, and Parris, I've realised this is a tough question to potentially answer. You know, we spoke about Janssen potentially being better going into defence. There's question marks. I think it's fair to say over Alatoon at the moment, in terms of her form right now. And before people come at me and say that I'm digging her out, I said this last season. I don't think her form was great either throughout all of last season, despite however many goals and assists she got in the end. What would you be doing, Parris, with that midfield moving forward into Arsenal? Because we've got some tough games, you know, after the international break, obviously with Arsenal kicking that off. In terms of, would you be looking to change anything? Would you keep it the same? You know, Awujo's come on in the last few games, and for me, put a marker down. She's looked very solid every time she's come on. So that would be the name for me. And, well, I don't know what's going on with that, but we're not seeing her at the moment anyway. Would you be changing anything? What do you want to do there?
I think that Awujo, for me, has probably been the signing that has impressed me kind of most from the bench. You know, every time she comes on, she looks like what we were banging on about over the summer: young, hungry, and talented. Right, those are the three key points, and I think that's how she looks every single time she goes on. I think her physicality is so good, her reading of the game as well. I really like. She's got that directness while also being very defensively solid. I think she's very mature in her understanding of the game for someone who is my age, because like I don't even know what I'm having for dinner. So like she's really impressed me. The question is then kind of what do we do in that situation, right? 'Cause I think Dominique Janssen has not come to United to sit on the bench. So that's probably where you're looking at. Do we then drop, I think it would have to be Millie Turner, and put Janssen in at centre back, and that would be the way we would do it. I hate that idea as a massive Millie Turner fan, but it's not something that I'm averse to us trying, for instance, in a cup fixture, seeing how it goes. With Alatoon, it's an incredibly hard one. I think we always had this with Katie Zellum occasionally as well. Like, you never, ever want to drop a player that means that much to the club. And the question is, is the way to go about this? Because I don't think she's not, some people are acting in the chat like she's had an absolute shocker. I don't think she has. Just not made the impact that we're used to seeing from her. I think that's a fairer way to put it. So the question is it then better to try and sort of play her back into form, or do we drop her to the bench? And honestly, I don't know. I personally think for the Arsenal game, we need a player that we know is of her calibre and can produce the moments that she can. I think we need her to stay in that role. But it's a difficult situation. It's one where I think we need to use the cup games to rotate and to see what our options are for if the sort of players that we're used to being, the players that we're used to being on form are not in form. We need to use the cup games to consider what our options are to rotate into that. But for Arsenal, I would probably say that she stays in the starting 11 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I realise as I'm asking this question, barring injury, she will be starting Arsenal. I don't see Mark changing anything, you know, in terms of that game. But Barry, I throw the same question to yourself. But again, another reason I ask this, because Mark, after the Spurs pre-season game, when he got asked about the squad, I'm going to have to try and find the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of making a lot of changes this season. You know, if players aren't in form, he's happy to make the changes this season. Now, for me, when you're looking at the midfield, there's two players in that midfield that are not working to the level they can. And there's two players, Miyazawa, we did see start this one. But for me, you've got Miyazawa and Awujo who are performing better. At what point do you make that switch and go, you know what, actually, I think they're the better option to start a game? Now, like I said, obviously Arsenal, I don't expect any changes. I don't know, who have we got after Arsenal? Villa at home and then Leicester away. I don't know, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yes, to a degree, it is. Just want to say, as you invited me to, I did go back onto YouTube. It was very easy to find. I had a little look at that penalty shout. Again, it's 50-50. It could do. But what's missed there is that actually we keep possession of the ball and we get an opportunity at the far post with what I think is Queen Elizabeth III and pushed on the post. So actually, you could argue that whether it was a penalty or not, we should be putting that one away as well. So this is what I mean. It's like it's all coursing.
Sorry, Brad. Before you say your piece here, what's going on here?
Are you writing things to yourself here, Keris? Are you bigging yourself
No,
up?
I saw. Who was it? Yeah, Philip. When Keris is right, so I was like, "Thank you very much."
We did, to be fair.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, I'm just backing myself up.
Fair play. Imara's gone, look at this. It's always right. She's added even more to it. So there we go. So no, it is that one. Question for you both, all right? And I'd just like a yes or no answer on this one. FA Cup final. Ella Toon. Take away that goal in that first 45 minutes that Ella Toon scores. Did you see much from Ella Toon that made you go, oh my God, she's having a great game, or wow, she's playing really well?
No.
Just yes or no?
No. And that's my point about why we keep her in against Arsenal.
Here's the problem. Because she just has that moment of magic. And it's really, really hard because when you've got a player like that who could potentially, I say this with love, stink the place out for 44 minutes. I'm not saying she does, but she could stink the place out for 44 minutes. But then in 60 seconds, just absolutely let one rip from 25 yards out that flies into the top corner and makes Connor squeal like a little piggy on its way to slaughter. It's absolutely unbelievable. Like, genuinely, I have never heard a noise like it. But that's what she has the ability to do. Now, it gets lots of people saying she needs to take a break. People have been saying this for ages. People are going to shout about that. People are going on about it. You're going to have your opinions. That's absolutely fine. I'm just telling you mine. And my opinion on this one is that, yes, we probably could do with her not playing. We absolutely could. We could. Because she's not affecting the game as much as she could. And Keris is right. She's not being seen as much. But you could argue that with Elizabeth Turland as well. She's only scored in one of the games that she's played so far. She hasn't scored in any of the others. Are we just trying to play her into form because we know how good she can be? It's one of those where actually sometimes there does have to be, a little bit of understanding that these players that play high up on the pitch are not always going to perform. Grace Clinton hasn't scored in every single game, but when you look at Grace Clinton and Ella Toon, everybody elevates Clinton above Toon at the moment because we are seeing how she's impacting the game and the chances she's having and all of the things that she is doing. So, it's simply for me a case of, as I've said 1,000,001 times, he will live or die by the decisions that he makes. The thing is that we've all sat here beforehand saying what an excellent squad it is. You're right. He did say that they can make a lot of changes. And that's going to be the big thing. And it's the fact that he's not. The fact that we are seeing players that are out of position when he could make the changes, that they're reasonably simple ones to do. And I think that's really where the big thing is. But ultimately, what I would argue here is that half of the people that are sitting here saying Ella Toon needs a break are also the people that are sitting here saying skin her out. So, maybe you're just left to a point of if you really want to see him out and you don't think Ella Toon should be starting, then maybe just cheer her on and keep giving her the support because you never know, you might get what you want in the first place. It's like, I think we all just need to calm down a little bit. I know that you're not happy with the midfield. I think it's okay. I don't think it's outrageous. I do think Hayley Ladd could play. There could be a bit of rotation there. But actually, it's all right. Unless he's going to put Dom in at centre-back, I agree. It's really difficult to break up that centre-back partnership. The Mayer and Millie one has worked quite well. If you did put Mayer out to right-back, maybe you've then got an argument for dropping Millie Turner. But the question is, who goes alongside Dom if you're doing that? So for me, I don't know. I don't know why people are getting so overexcited. You know, we've drawn a match away to a side in the top four, and for me, that's far better. I mean, like, again, I'm genuinely, Amara, you just have to accept the fact you're an Arsenal fan on a Man United channel here for what I'm about to say. But they've had shocking results. They drew with Everton when we smashed them 1-0. Like, they're the ones who should be getting upset. They've sacked their manager. We haven't needed to. Why? Because we're doing incredibly well. And when we come back after the international break, and Leslie Russo is just a pile of clothes on the floor, weeping into the grass because of the fact that she knows she's made the wrong decision, we're all going to be sitting there shouting, you know, Mark Skinner's Red and White Army, because I keep saying it and nobody wants to, you know, you'll all join me when we get past Christmas, but we're winning the league. But just honestly, just stick with it. What a wonderful world this is. We're right up there. We win our game in hand against Chelsea, we'll level with Man City, top of the league. But you wouldn't think it the way people are going on there. You'd think if we didn't win the game, we're going to be in the relegation spots for West Ham. Get on with you. It's all good.
I'm too ill to argue. I'm just going to let you have it tonight. We'll revisit it in a few weeks. I'll be bothered. But no, I think it's a conversation. To be fair, you're saying, you know, after we've just drawn a game, I said this after West Ham and after Everton and after Spurs. So I've been consistent. I want to see a change in that midfield regardless of the result. If we could go and beat Arsenal 5-0, I think I'd still be saying the same anyway. Because I think at the moment there's better players on form for those positions. I'd throw Lisa into that mix and I'd throw Dom into that mix if you're not going to put her as a centre-back. So yeah, I think there's questions there. But as I said, ultimately, this season for Mark, whether people like it or not, is about results. He knows he needs to get top 3 at the minimum, I think, to get a new contract anyway. So from his point of view, I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Maybe we'll talk about this over the international break because we've got no games now. So we'll see where we're at in a week's time or something like that. I think that's one higher, Mads, than where you went in the pre-season. I'm not saying anything until we play the top 3, which is going to be so long away because we don't know when Chelsea's going to get rescheduled, and also we don't play City until mid to late January, I think it is. Yeah, no, it is. It's 27th of January, isn't it? So I'll reserve judgment until then, until we've played the top 3 or last season's top 3. Then I'll see where
Connor,
we're at.
we were watching when Arsenal were on last week. I was messaging you saying I was getting delusional about us being title challengers, and you were agreeing with me. So I just like to point out that Connor is not actually as sensible as he tries to be.
I've been outed here.
To be fair, we already know that Connor's not the most sensible. I've already won that award. Keris is always right, and I'm the most sensible Manchester United fan ever. And I'm here for it. I rate that, actually. I think I'm rarely reactionary. I'm quite proud of myself, actually.
Not about that. Well, no, I agree on your last bit. I don't know about the most sensible.
No, well, there's moments when I'm not sensible, Connor, like when I'm calling you a little piggy, those sorts of things. Absolutely. No, that's just, humour.
I honestly feel like my DMs have been leaked here as well. I'll have to revisit that. Anyway. Oh, dear me. Should we get to play? Should we get to player of the match? And
can I just honestly, mate? If you were over on the men's channel, I get so little over there. It's like I have to take it where I can get it here. Otherwise, I would be like Leslie Russo. I'd be a pile of clothes on the floor, just rocking and weeping. It's not great.
Yes. Hang on, we went. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think we might hear something on this pretty soon because I think the league are going to want this sorted pretty soon. So I think there's
It sounds like a really wicked piece of furniture, that, doesn't it? A fence. Like a mixture between a bench and a fence. It's like a whole fence, but with a bench inbuilt. This could be a great idea. I'm going to go away and draw this before I go on my next show. Might be some money to be made here.
In terms of player of the match, have we all gone Clinton? My camera's going again. Let me sort this out while I ask you to that.
Yeah, I think we all said Grace Clinton backstage. I think for me, her sort of movement and creativity. Obviously, scoring the goal always helps when it's your only goal. But yeah, I think she continued to show how exceptional she is, as she has all season so far.
Barry, have you gone the same?
Yes, I was getting there. I was breathing in. My player of the match, I mean, it's crazy. Clinton cards, absolutely. Hillary, who else could it be? Got to be her. By far the best player on the pitch for us. Possibly in every game so far. Actually, it's getting a bit silly. She could be our Garcia this season. I reckon we could get to Christmas and she might have already ran away with it, making your pie charts and bar charts null and void by the end of that.
I was going to say, well, she has won the player of the match poll in the chat as well. 50. These percentages don't add up. I don't know why YouTube keeps doing this. It's 2% short, so I'm going to have to try and round that up or round that down when I have a look.
It is random. That's what happens, mate.
No, but I mean, it's not 100%. So, like, there's percent missing. Like, 55 plus 21 plus 18 plus 4 is not 100. So
no, if you had, like, I don't know, 24.4, 24.4, 24.4, 24.4. It rounds it to 24 each time, which will give you 98. And that's where your 2 would be missing.
Yeah, it's 98, yeah. So there we go. Either way, Clinton did win 55%, it says in there, so that's probably 56. Fallon is second, 21. Bizette 18, Mia's out 4. So Mia's out did get a couple of votes as well. But yeah, it's not surprising. And to be fair, how many Clinton awards has she won? How many player of the match awards has Clinton won now from us? She won West Ham. She won Everton.
Why are you asking us? You're the one who keeps the spreadsheet.
And she's won this one, so that's 3 now, because she didn't win Spurs or Liverpool. So she's on 3 already. Last season's winner was Garcia on 5, and Clinton's already on 3. So she's head and shoulders above, as I said a bit earlier on that one. Yes, Lanzella will have a listen to that. After this, I believe it was pretty short. I think she only did about 15 minutes. I think as a I don't know. Anyway, I'll have a look at it after this. I'm sure. Look at this. I feel like Keris is using her influence now to just get people on side. So,
what influence? What are you on about? I don't have any influence.
Your, I don't know, WFC channel influence.
Okay.
Connor, I think the medication's kicked in, mate.
Yeah, I think should we run this off? Obviously, being international break now, we'll have a different type of show potentially next Monday anyway. How long is international break? It's only a week, isn't it? So we'll be back. It's a week on Sunday. We play Arsenal, so yeah, we'll have another show potentially next Monday, and obviously the preview then for Arsenal that week as well. Make sure you're liking this video and subscribing if you haven't already. Follow all of the socials at allforunitedwfc. Thank you everyone in the chat as always for sticking with us, putting all your comments in. I apologise I didn't bring up absolutely everyone's comments. There's so many these days that I can't bring them all up because I'd be doing that for the whole show. So appreciate all of your comments that come in. We might be back later on in the week. We might not. If you want to see my face again, I'm probably going to do a live at some point this week on TikTok, as I usually do, because I didn't do yesterday's. Because as you have seen tonight, I'm still recovering, so I couldn't do that yesterday. Barry's got his hand up like he's in school. What's going on?
If we were to watch your face on TikTok, would it be blurry or not blurry?
It's not blurry. It's on my phone. So
okay. HD Connor. Woo.
Yeah, maybe that's a reason to not tune. What was that? But there we go. I don't know whether there's anything else to shout. Keris, is there anything you want to shout out? Your Twitter at is there in it, so people can go follow you, considering you're always right, apparently. So
yeah, well, exactly. I randomly, it was a really funny one again where I quoted your tweet on the WFC account about Maya hitting like the youngest player ever to reach 100 starts, and it got like hundreds of likes. So yeah, thanks to anyone who liked that. But also, like, I do tweet more insightful stuff than just "this is really cool" sometimes. So do go and follow my Twitter, and hopefully my podcast with my friend Angel, the She's Out of Your League podcast, should be returning hopefully next week. So keep an eye out for that.
There we go. Something to look forward to.
That's the WFC influence right there. You see, right there. I'm going to throw something out there. because you did say to me that you would ask me if I had anything to shout out, and it's a blatant lie. The last time that I brought that up, and actually I do. And I just wanted to say, because somebody put it up earlier on, right at the very beginning, and I managed to hold off from derailing the show at that point, about what a good write-up it is that Connor's been doing with the things in the cutback. And I just wanted to throw that out there, because actually people don't see the inner workings of WFC. And they also haven't seen the number of times a couple of years ago from that point on where Connor would be sending me messages going, how should we word this message? How should we word this tweet? All of those sorts of things that were coming out. And I just want to say how wonderful it's been to see the confidence that Connor's starting to get now, to be able to go out there, to do the writing, because he's always had the great opinions. The reason you guys love him, the reason we love him, is because he's really articulate at what he's saying. He thinks his things through. I know that we're all sitting here saying Parris is right, but we're all just giving our opinions at the end of the day. But they're always insightful, and they're always incredibly well thought out. And he spends a lot of time on it. So I just wanted to really say well done, because it's not easy. And actually, to have the confidence and to try and go and do those things, it is what's needed if you're going to start getting some quality coverage and analysis across women's football. And it's a wonderful thing to see that other people are seeing what we've always seen in Connor, which is that actually he's got some really good opinions and he can throw that out there. So well done, Connor. It's a delight to read your stuff.
No, I appreciate that. As I said, I definitely put a lot. This was my favourite one to write, that's for sure. And somebody said, how long it took to put together. Trust me when I say I watched the game back for 6.5 hours, putting that together, slowing it down, getting the stills together, making sure that what I was saying was factually correct. In terms of that piece. So I'm glad that people enjoyed it. It's the most read, I think, that I've done so far. So appreciate everyone who's given it a read. If you haven't already, it is on my Twitter. The way I try and describe it, I just want to make the tactical side of the game as simple as possible. That's kind of the aim for the platform. I try and put it in work, because I've said to people over the last few days, buzzwords gets thrown out with tactical things all the time. So, I'm an analyst, pivot, double pivot, and pressing, all this kind of stuff. Buzzwords, as I say. So I'm trying to break it down into more simple terms so people can read it through. That's the idea of it. So appreciate that, Barry. Thank you for that. So you can find that on my Twitter. Make sure you're following the Cutback as well, because it's definitely a good platform to be following, not just from a United point of view, from everything else as well. As I said, make sure you're liking this video, subscribing, and everything else. Following all the socials at All for United WFC. We'll be back potentially sometime later in the week, if not at the very latest next Monday. Have a good week all, and we shall see you guys later on.